All right. For the extraction and screening process, we can navigate between databases. So right now I am on the interface of Google Scholar. So we can do Google Scholar, we can do Science Direct, Scopus, Web of Science, PubMed, and Web of Science. But for this exercise, I'm going to be using only Google Scholar and PubMed. So first, remember that when we're talking about in our slide, when we're talking about the search strings and the key terms, I mentioned that you must have key terms and synonyms of the key terms, and then you should have Boolean values to stretch or expand your search, or also truncate, or let's say limit your search. So you could also have limiters. So in Google Scholar, these are the limiters. We have year, and we have date limiters, right? There are other limiters within these which we can explore also, such as of course the reviewer article, or the review article. Is the article a review article or not? You can come here to expand it. When we go to settings, we can explore these other options if we wish, but right now we are not. We want to remain on the basis. Let's stay here. So we have mobile learning. Remember, mobile learning is our intervention. Our population is university students, university students, and our comparison is traditional method, and our population is Nigerian students. Our intervention is mobile learning, our comparison, and our outcome is academic performance. So we can organize this in a way. Okay, academic performance and mobile learning. So if I should click on this, several studies will come up on my first click. Let's try it. Let's search for these key terms. These are the 4 main key terms we are searching for without their synonyms in Google Scholar. So we have about 1.1 million search, approximately 1.2 million on our first click within 0.39 seconds. Over 1.2 million papers have been identified. But we can go on and on and on. If you go down here, we can go on and even get to 10. It will continue until it gets to 1.1 million papers that have been published on these key terms. Why are the papers so many? Is because we have not limited our search. There are no limiters yet, right? And we have not applied Boolean values or Boolean operators. So if we apply Boolean operators, we'll find out that our study will drop, the number of studies will drop drastically. First, we've created keywords, and then we apply Boolean values, After applying Boolean values, you can go on to apply their synonyms, right? Which will help to broaden the search. And we can even rephrase our topic to a question. In fact, that's the most basic way you can get your result. So let's see, let's take it one after the other. We've done this, so let's limit it. If we apply inverted commas or question marks, quotation marks, sorry, such as these, we are limiting our search, telling it to give us only studies that contain the terms within the parameter of the quotation mark. You can see that when we left it open, it was giving us single words like e-learning, learning, academic performance. But when we include this, for instance, mobile learning, let's include university students and see what will come up. We are not including any other thing, but just university student and mobile learning. We have included inverted commas. You can see here now that traditional method came up, but it did not bring traditional methods. It just brought out traditional, as traditional learning, of course. And mobile learning came together because we have applied our inverted commas or our quotation mark to restrict the word being used with other alternatives, like you say, mobile classes, mobile lectures, right? So we restricted it to mobile learning. These two words must come together in our results. So limiting it gave us about 23,000 from 1.2. It has now dropped to 23,000. You see it, right? So when we look at now, we can see mobile learning is here. We can see mobile learning here. We can see university students, right? It gave us university students achievement. Those two words must come together. Mobile learning. You can see mobile learning. You can see, and many more. So if we want to also restrict it to give us only the words within, to bring the two words together, or the phrases, to bring up the phrases together, we are going to do this. Apply this quotation marks in all and strike it. Let's see what comes up now. So it has now restricted it from, remember it was 1.2 million on our first hit. On our second hit, it reduced it to about 12,000, right? And the third hit now, what we have is 1.37 million, right? So all of these, you must record them. If you remember in our Excel, in our PowerPoint slide, I showed you how that you can get this search and then include an Excel table. You write out the search results. So the number of strikes we've had for this particular database for Google Scholar, we're going to add them all together and make it our search results. So what is our search result for Google Scholar? We can say 1.5.2 million. Those were the number of papers it brought up. But when we screened the papers, what did we get? That's also going to give us a different result. So now we have applied the inverted commas or the quotation marks, and this is what we now have. The one in bold, the text in bold, are the ones we want to see, the ones we've applied we have applied the inverted commas on. So we have mobile learning, we have academic performance. So do we have academic performance here? Yes, of course we do. We do have academic performance, and we can see academic performance here in bold. All of them in bold are the ones we want to see. We can still also limit our search, right? So we can limit our search by using the term all in title. We can add the term all in title. Let's see that the title of the study must contain all of the words we want here. All in title. You write it all together and then you click on colon. So we are now going to leave this with only 2 quotation marks and not separate them. So let's see if there is any title that contains all of this. Let's see if there's any title. Okay, let's try it. You see, there's no results. So it has reduced it from 1.1 million to 0. We do not have a result for this, but we can rephrase. When we rephrase, it is possible that we will find a study that has focused on all of these put together, the PICO factors or the PICO elements. Let's see, mobile learning. Let's see, among university students. Let's remove traditional method and see, and academic performance, right? Let's see. So it can give us a rephrased version of the study, but will contain all. However, there is no study. So it says, let's read what's here. Your search, all in title, mobile learning among university students and academic performance, did not match any article. So there is no article that have been written on this title, right? Okay, let's see, all in title. Let's say mobile learning and academic performance. Let's see if we'll find a study that contains these 2. So we still do not have a study. So for this is how far we can go with this. And then we can also include Boolean operators. When we include Boolean operators, it helps to expand our search, right? So how do we include Boolean operators? Instead of the and, let's remove this all in search. Instead of the and we used here, we're going to use uppercase, and we close this quotation mark, use uppercase and then use this. But when we're doing this in other databases, it's going to be a bit different. So let's try this: mobile learning and academic performance. We're going to find a lot of papers now, right? Now we have 24,200 papers. So we could continue doing this and doing until we find as many papers as we want. But the screening process, right? This is the first process. It has to do with accessing the papers, getting onto the database and accessing the papers. How do we screen the papers? You check the title, and we can go on to check also the contents of the abstract. Then we go on to check the full text. So the first part for the screening is the title. So we can easily check the title here if it contains our PICO elements. We can check our title. For this, we can see that effect of mobile learning on student satisfaction, perceived usefulness, and academic performance when learning in foreign language. When learning the foreign language, we can see that this contains our PICO elements. Mobile learning, our intervention, student satisfaction, academic performance, which is our outcome. When learning foreign language, we talk about students. We have students here, right? Although we don't know the category of students, whether undergraduate or postgraduate, but we have seen about two of the elements there. So this paper could pass for the first screening. When we check here, we see PDF Frontiers. It tells us that this paper is opened or is accessible. We can access the paper. There are some papers you may not find PDF in front of them, so we may not be able to access the papers. So if we click on PDF, we'll have this paper opened here, right? Yeah, it's downloaded. So we can go on to check the abstract of the paper. So what we have here, we check the abstract, and then you copy the abstract. You take it to Excel, Microsoft Excel. I will not go there now because I wouldn't want to switch tab. It may affect our recording. So we copy the abstract, we take it to Excel, create a column called abstract, create another column called type. The first column is going to be maybe 6 columns. I'll show you on an Excel table afterwards. 6 columns. The first column, author and year. The second column, the study location. The third column could be the study scope. Third column. So you include all the elements that you find on the abstract and on the title page of the paper, right? And also the result. What is the result? What is the finding of the paper? You just conclude the findings of the paper. If you look at the paper and go to the discussion, you will find the discussion of the result. You will find you can extract the result from the experimental study of the effect, blah blah blah, and then this one now, it obtained results. There is no clear result for this paper. For this now, although it has passed the first test, but the abstract screening does not contain results. The study aims, it tells us the aim, well, right? Because remember that we are going to use MM80, and MM80 will ask, does the study have adequate results? Does it contain what we want to see? But this does not contain it. So we may go on to screen the full text. By so doing, we'll be able to summarize the results. So when we go on to the full text of the book, and you go to discussion, or let's check conclusion first. So in the conclusion, we can find something we will pick out from there, right? Or in the results section, we can summarize the result into few lines and then include it in our in the findings, or the findings and also the implication of the study. We can include it too. So this is just for Google Scholar. And then there are other papers that, just like this paper for instance, it does not include PDF in front of it, so we may not be able to access this paper, but through your institutional account you may be able to access it. Or if you're not able to access it, you may seek consent from some of your professors. They may have access to it. So, but beyond this, there is also what is called snowball searching. We could search for a specific paper that have been cited. So the higher the citation, the higher the likelihood for the paper to be valid, to be reliable, to be authentic, right? So we find out that among these studies here, impact of mobile learning on students' achievement, which was carried out just 2019, that's about 6 years ago, has 350 citations. That's a whole lot, right? It has over 350 citations. So For these 350 citations, we can click on it and it will enable us to access other papers related to this particular field. If we're carrying out, let's say, scoping review that requires us to access 500 or 300 or 200 or 150 papers relating to a specific context, then we can snowball, because if they are cited this author, it therefore means they have done something relating to the study. One, it also means that the study is reliable. Remember, in our appraisal tool, we must indicate whether the study is reliable by ticking the list, by ticking whether the study is reliable or it's not reliable, the method is reliable. If the method is reliable, doesn't include theory. So all of those, this gives us a reliability rating. It can enable us to rate it high or low. And then we have this. We can also go back. So, but after you've done this, you put it in the table, right? And indicate the number of searches you have, the date that this was done. You make all of those recording. We can go to another database. We've done much on this. We can go to another database. Okay, before we go to another database, let me include this. Well, if you look at this, there are some studies that are including certain words, so we may not want to include that word. For instance, we find out that a study is including maybe the specific term that studies have been continually using. You may not want to include that term. You may want to exclude the term. Let's say maybe intervention. The term intervention, I've seen it in some of the, like in this. Okay, I think these studies do not really have. So we may want to include what I'm saying now. You include hyphen and then intervention. It's telling you exclude any study on intervention. Do not give me. Right? So now if we check, we won't find any study. There was a study I saw here on intervention. It has excluded the study. So when you want to exclude any study, you may not want it to bring up. Okay, see this. We can exclude such study and we will not find it. Yeah, we can't find it anymore. So then we can go to another database, Web of Science. For Web of Science, it uses the same process we have just done in Google Scholar, but it's a bit more complex than the simplified search string we have used in Google Scholar. So for Web of Science, we must include our open bracket, use quotation marks, right? Title and abstract. What we are telling it to give us is give us the studies and their titles and abstracts. Remember that our first process of reviewing or screening is screen titles and abstract before we screen full text. Then you say or college students, or what else, or higher education students, or okay, and Nigeria. Yeah, these are what we want to see. So after clicking it, let's see what our search is going to bring up. The initial our initial search gave us 165 papers. Of these 165 papers, we can find out that the ones in bold the text or the phrases in bold are the ones that have been included here, right? It brings up the studies that have these phrases or these terms. You can see them. So for Web of Science, if we finally study that we want to screen out, we can click on this, click on this, click and copy the studies. This study, we click on this, and then after clicking on all of these, we can go to, we can save it, right? We create a file. We've already created a file, citation download. What we've created now is what it has downloaded and sent to me already in CSV file is the citation. I downloaded only the citation, but I may want to download also the abstract, right? I must first of all have to save that. I'll have to save the information I have, save it, save the summary, right? Save. Let's see what we have now. So now it gives me all the study. It gives me everything about this study. But the most important thing I want to see is the abstract of the study, which is already here. So I can go ahead and copy the abstract and those basic information I want, and then take it to my Excel file, to my Excel sheet, and organize them based on the titles, the headings of my Excel sheet. Right? This is very simplified. What happened here is all of the ones I have ticked were the ones he got downloaded here. I ticked 1, 2, 3, 4 papers, and those were the 4 papers whose references were given to me here, and they were given to me in, I think, Vancouver reference style. Okay, you can also change the referencing style to the one you want, and then we are not going to navigate that now. So then we can screen. This is what we call limiters. On this other side, these are the limiters, right? So we can limit to 5 years, and then it will shrink our search from 165. We now have 77. Remember that initially it was on 10-year span, 10-year study. It is really good to do this because you must, when you're presenting your study, you have to show a description of the series of papers that have been published over time, from, let's say, if we're carrying out a 10-year study from 2014 to 2024, the papers that have been published within these years, and then what number of papers, if I looked at 100 papers, how many papers were published in 2014, how many were published in 2015, how many in 2016, 2020. So this is the reason we have to include this criteria, right? If I include full text, what am I going to find? Let's see. Free full text, we have 54 papers which came up with full text, but some of them do not really include our key terms, right? You see that it's now going out of what we want to see, like this dental health knowledge, attitude and practice is not a part of our work, right? It's out of our work. So we continue doing this and over. So we can limit it to only abstract. Let's not do. Okay. What else can we do? We can limit it to a specific kind of study. What kind of article are we looking at? All of them are, we are particularly looking at empirical papers. But of the empirical papers we're looking at, are we looking at randomized studies? Are we looking at meta-analysis or non-randomized studies or clinical studies? So which are we focusing on? Let's say we want to check meta-analysis, only meta-analysis. There is no result for meta-analysis. Let's include let's include randomized control trial. What do we have here? We can see two studies. So of these two studies, are they related to our work? Let's check the title. Testing the efficacy of group cognitive behavioral therapy for pathological internet use among undergraduate students. Although we have undergraduate students, which is a part of our synonym for university students, right? But now it's talking about testing the efficacy of group cognitive behavioral therapy for pathological internet use. So this is like a behavioral study, a psychological study, which tests also the effects of internet use on among undergraduates, but it does not relate it to their performance. We can go ahead to check the content of this paper because it cannot just tell us of the effects on undergraduates. Why should you use students if you're not about, or if you're not interested in their performance in school? So one may ask this question. So this will warrant us to check the content of the paper. So you can click on it. If I click on it now, it will take me to the paper, and then you access the content of the paper if the paper is open access. And then the same thing is applicable to this assessment of the effectiveness of group cognitive behavioral therapy in reducing pathological gambling. This does not relate to our work because the key terms are not there. The population is not there. Our intervention is not there. The outcome is not there. There's no comparative. There's no comparison, which is our traditional methods. So these are the basic things you look out for. Let's remove this and check for only randomized control trials and see the outcome. So now we have also, okay, let's include reviews. Now we're going to have lots of papers. Funnily enough, we have only 3. Okay, let's check systematic reviews. Remember, there is a difference between reviews and systematic reviews. Reviews now maybe looking at literature reviews, maybe looking at policy reviews and several other reviews, but systematic review is more streamlined. So this is it for PubMed. But as the case may be, let's see this. We can do this and email it, send it to our email, or send it to someone, right? We can put this all together for those who work with colleagues and who may be interested in, just like you would have first reviewer and second reviewer. If you happen to be a first reviewer, a second reviewer, or even a third reviewer for some systematic literature review, you may have a third reviewer who will have an insightful eye on the work when the first and the second reviewer cannot agree on a thing. So you can have a third reviewer look at the work. So this now, I'm sorry for delaying. Okay, now we have this. So let's say I select this because it contains what I want. I select this because the title contains what I want. I select these because it contains cross-sectional study, of course, which is an empirical study. Remember, one of our inclusion criteria would be that the study must be an empirical study. We are not focusing on this now, right? Then we can send it to an email. We can send it to an email. You create an email, right? Let's see, the email is John G Lake at gmail.com. Then you include your own email at gmail.com. Right, so what we are sending now, what are we sending? Is it the summarized version or just the abstract? Let's say we are sending only the abstract. And then mesh terms and others, let's include this. Then we can send it to the person we want to send it to. As simple as that, right? And the person is most definitely going to receive it, although this would not be received because the email I used in sending it is wrong. So we can go on to Web of Science and also other Scopus and other databases, right? This is for database search. Now, if we've done all of this, I'm now taking you to Excel to see the structure of what we've gotten from all of this. So this is our Excel. We have this in Excel. So if you check the heading now, remember what we initially said? After we've gotten our papers downloaded and we've organized them, you must have a place where you organize your paper. All the papers, which is going to be a table like this. So as I'm checking the papers, I check what is the title of the first paper. You can create you can create a column where you include the titles. Actually, you can make the first column title. You can call it titles. And then you include the titles of the paper. Title of the paper, it's going to be easier. This is another way of doing it. Instead of including author and year, you can include the title. But to make it more simplified, you can use author and date, the location of the study, where the study was carried out. This was carried out in Ahmadu Bello University, Nigeria, University of Lagos, Nigeria, Federal University of Technology, and so on. And then what was the sample size? Remember, it's an empirical study, it's not a theoretical paper. So what was the sample size? For this, they all have smaller sample sizes, some have larger sample sizes. You know, the larger the sample size, as the case may be, we could deduce the strength of the findings based on this. And then intervention, include your intervention. Remember that is an empirical systematic literature review we are doing now. So what is our intervention? Our intervention is mobile application. What was the intervention that was focused on? That's what we are saying. What was the intervention that was focused on in this study? For this particular study, the intervention focused on was mobile app based learning, which is of course still relating to our mobile learning, e-learning platforms, video lectures on mobile. So all of those you record it down. What was our comparison? Right, so you record the comparator. What a comparator is, like a factor which compares with the other factor, right? Something, a factor which compares with another. So face-to-face lecture is our comparator. Face-to-face lecture compares to our traditional methods. Chalkboard teaching, chalkboard teaching is traditional, right? chalkboard teaching, traditional group tutor, chalkboard, and so on. Then we come now to outcome measures. What's our outcome measures? What what was the dependent variable? Let me call it. Let me use that term. What was the dependent variable the authors or the study try to check the impact of this factor on? So we see that GPA improvements, right? Course grades, all of these relate to academic performance. So there are also key terms that could be used or synonyms that could be used, but they are too specific to be used in a database. For instance, GPA improvement. It's difficult to find someone studying GPA improvement. They may study academic performance generally, but not GPA improvement specifically. Um, it's a mixed study, this is a quantitative study, this is a mixed study, and so on. Was the finding significant or not significant? Is the finding was significant, the finding was not significant, the finding was significant, and so on and so forth. Then, what was the indexing? Index reflects on the database that this study was found. As let me define it that way. So, where was this study found? In which database was it indexed? Right? There are some non-indexed journals, and those non-indexed journals cannot be accessed via databases. So the indexed journals can be accessed via specific databases. So now we have Google Scholar, Web of Science, Scopus. Then we have not indexed. It means the journal is not indexed. It's possible that it was found on website, or it was found on the journal page, right, but not indexed. Then what is the type of the journal? It's an institutional journal, it's a peer-reviewed journal. You have to mention the specific type of journal it is. Is it a gray literature? Is it so there are various types of. We have institutional journal. So okay, let me do this. I think this will be. So we have gray literature, institutional journal, and peer-reviewed journals. So what specific kind of literature did you examine? Since we are not actually looking at theoretical papers, right? And we are not also looking at reviews that are not empirical. So you must indicate it to tell us that this paper has passed the critical appraisal test, and as many papers as you want to. So for this I have over 50 papers. Then you come also to the screening. In our initial screening process, when we were doing the journal 2008, what we did was, this is the title of the paper, the author of the paper, the year it was accessed, the journal, the name of the journal. You have to record all of this too. The name of the journal, the abstract of the journal. This is now the description. This is a part of the description, but this records specific things as it relates to the PICO or the PCC, whichever you are using. Remember that everything we are doing now is for systematic literature review, and it's also applied. It could also be applicable to scoping review, but you have to modify to be specific to the PCC. That's the population, concept, and context. You must not include papers. You must not, but you can, but must not include papers with intervention and comparators. Then we have this now. You must include this. Then also first reviewer. What's the first reviewer's decision on this paper? Maybe the paper should pass. What's the second reviewer's? Maybe the second reviewer say yes. Let the paper is okay. And conclusion include this one. they may decide to discuss, right? This one maybe no, discuss. Did the paper pass? No. Because if the first reviewer said maybe and the second said no, there is a high likelihood that the paper may not be included. So, decision must not be taken by one reviewer, must be taken by the two reviewers. So then we have our decision here. Maybe you could change this to comment or reasons for exclusion. Just leave it as reasons for exclusion, off topic. This is where you will now get information also from and include in your remember that this reasons for exclusion is a part of your inclusion and exclusion criteria, which you've already penned down. So it's also what you're going to include in your Prisma 2020 framework. Is the second to last item you will include, right? So if we check our Prisma 2020, we'll find something like this. If we still have time, I'll open it and show you, and then we'll find that. Then in our critical appraisal tool, that's the MMAT, for the critical appraisal tool for mixed methods, this is what we've been able to bring the checklist to Excel. So you are going to be ticking each, or you just use yes. Are there clear research papers? Now you're doing this for all the papers. It's like you're doing an overall assessment. Are there clear research papers? You include yes, or you include no. So whichever you want, but you must not include yes and no at the same time. Include yes and no is complicating. You cannot, something cannot be true and be no at the same time. So it's going to be one of it, yes. Then there must be a column here for comments, because you will state reason why you included it. Then also the second one, do the collected data allow to address the research question? Do they? If yes, you include yes. If no, you include no. If you are not sure, you include can't tell. Right? You just say can't tell. So you continue, so you check every item in the checklist and ensure that you have filled the checklist, because you must have to summarize this checklist and include it in your results, in your final results. Yeah, so let's see if we can check the Prisma check. Prisma. There is Prisma checklist. There's a checklist and there's a diagram, but we are not checking the diagram. So before you carry out a Prisma, you fill up the Prisma diagram, you must ensure that the studies also have passed the test in the Prisma checklist. As there is an MMAT checklist, there's also a Prisma checklist, which could be used as a critical appraisal tool too. You can use a Prisma checklist as a critical appraisal tool. So we have this Prisma. So this is what we have. This was what I was telling you about, the last reasons for exclusion. Why did you exclude the studies? We have here reasons for exclusion. So you now copy these reasons for exclusion, right? You can create a column here that tells you of the number of studies that were excluded. Numbers. No, stronger. So numbers. 50 studies. Maybe you carried out assessment on 10. Let's say 100 studies, and then for this what is the serial number of the studies? Okay, the serial number is already indicated here. But in the case where you are not including the author's name and all of those, you have to include the number of studies that were included on this specific on a specific basis. But for this, it may not be required. Then after you've done this, you have to count the studies. Count the studies that were excluded. How many studies were excluded on a specific term, on a specific basis? After that, you come here in your Prisma on the first report. Why did you exclude it? We can say we can include different reasons. One of such reasons could be date. You can say outdated. How many studies were outdated? You can say 20. But first of all, it begins from here. So registered. Are we actually using register for this study? If we are not using register, we remove it. It doesn't have to be there if you are not using it. Then it is usually recommended, if you check below this asterisk, you can read the information here when you get this Prisma framework downloaded. It is usually recommended that you state the databases. So we are going to state the database Web of Science, Scopus, Google Scholar. Let's limit it to that. And then put this here. Put this here. So so you should organize this way. And then for Web of Science, how many papers did we find in our click? Right? Well, remember what you were writing, the extraction form you have already written down, and that information you were supposed to write down when you extracted your data. Remember we said you're supposed to have a form where you fill informations on, which I showed you on the Excel sheet, on the PowerPoint slide rather. We have this. Okay, this. Remember this? Something like this. The numbers you have here in your results found are the numbers you will copy. Right? For PubMed, how many studies did I find? 82. You go to this Excel, to your Prisma rather, and include it. So that's what you do for all the studies, right? If I found 82 for Web of Science, I include it 82. And I do the same. How many did I find for Scopus? I found 19. How many did I find? But it's most unlikely for you to find only 19. So you're going to find something like up to 200 for Google Scholar. Remember, we found up to 1.1 million. So you include the number there. But to allow for specificity, you can include the number, the last one you found. Let's say we found 199, so that you don't include excess numbers. Then what is the total? So I usually will add overall total. Overall, and then you add this up together and it will give us our overall, whatever our overall is. Then how many papers were removed, records removed before screening, before the screening process, right? Before we did this, how many papers were removed? These are the total number of papers we had, but how many were removed before? This is the extraction and this is the screening. When we extracted the papers online, we put them in this form, in this format, right? after extracting them, we also screened from this format to this format based on the ones we have included, the ones we have excluded, and all of those. And then we appraised the studies to ensure that we have met with inclusion exclusion criteria and the study is in line. So when we are recording it now, so duplicate records. How many duplicate records did you find? If you use Zotero or any other online tool, you could find that. You can also access that via Excel. And when we use drop down, Excel drop down, you can access studies that that duplicates. You can access that by author name, right? So there is a unique author name for everything here. But when you find out that some author's name repeats, let's see this, then you would be able to know, see this, the number of authors that repeats. So we are going to report this, how many studies were removed. If I check this now, I can remove all of the studies and leave only one because all of them are duplicated. So I will delete them, right? Delete because it's duplicated efforts. You clear off. So we have just one now. You do the same for all. If you have over 50 studies, that's when you are using Excel. So there could be an alternative to using Zotero, which will help you to do that without you having to do it manually. So far we have come to the end of this class. This Prisma 2020 framework, you follow the structure. You duplicate the record, you remove duplicate records marked as ineligible by automation tools. If you used automation tools, that's when you include this. But if you didn't use automation tools, there is no need to include this. You remove it. Record removed from other reasons, for other reasons. Were there any other reason you remove the records? Maybe the records were you found out that a specific result deviated, or there were any other reasons which may not be contained here. Remember that you still have to state reasons here for excluding. So you state the reason. That reason must not be related to your inclusion and exclusion criteria. Then you state it, and you include record screen. How many records did you screen? How many records did you exclude in the screening process? How many records did you sort out for retrieval? How many records did you report that were eligible? How many did you exclude that were ineligible? And then you report the final. The final for systematic review, you can find out that you have only 18 study or 20 study. So thank you very much for this attention you have given in this lesson. I trust that this will make it will make a meaning. Thank you.